So, what we are going to do today, let me minimize this, is going to be an extension on what we worked on last week. So last week we kind of talked a little bit more theory about how these cutoff versus button 3-bet pots play. We were looking specifically at 40 big blinds, but the same type of principles apply to 30 big blinds, 40, 50, 60 big blinds, just, slight little changes. And go ahead and take a second. And in general, how do a lot of these 3-bet pots play button versus cutoff? What was kind of the general thing that came up that we were talking about? What's the general process? Is it, the small blind checking? Is the button betting a lot? Is the cutoff calling a lot, raising a lot, folding a lot? What was the overall consensus of what we kind of figured out of how these pots play a lot of the time? Yeah, so a big part of what happens is the cutoff's checking a lot. The big blind was betting a lot for a small size, anywhere from 20 to 30%. A lot of 20% sizing, 25% sizing. And then the cutoff is really just put in a really tough spot. And because their range is so weak, they end up playing their best defense against the button and the button's polarized 3-betting range off of 40 big blinds. The best defense is for the cutoff to play a very aggressive check raising strategy. And the cutoff does, excuse me, fold a lot. They fold more than an MDF would suggest based off the pot odds. But the cutoff does overfold, but when they do overfold, they end up check raising a ton and trying to level out the playing field by continuing with the stronger range. And a lot of hands like top pair, even some non-top pair hands, end up just being strong enough to check raise and stack off. The SPR a lot of the times in these 40 big blind pots is around 2.5. And so there's a lot of check raising, aggressive play from top big blinds. It ends up playing kind of the easiest analogy that I think would explains it best is these cutoff versus button 3-bet pots play a lot like big blind versus button, big blind versus cutoff. When you defend off of like 15 big blinds, 20 big blinds, where you got a shallow SPR, and from the big blind you end up check raising a lot, and you overfold a lot because you were getting a really good price pre-flop. So you get to call a lot of hands pre-flop, but you end up overfolding post-flop just because you carry so much junk in your range. And so then by the turn, your ranges are a lot more equal because now you overfolded on the flop, so you arrive at the turn much more in a better position against that button player. So what we're going to look at today is I ran a filter in my database for spots where we call the 3-bet out of position and we're playing between 25 and 60 big blinds. And we're going to go through some hands and see a couple of things I changed. And I mentioned this last week, I believe. The sims, the models that I showed you guys last week had a lot of, the smallest sizing used by the in position player was 30%. And when I reran a lot of those models at 20%, we actually get to use even a smaller sizes than 30%. I think one of the mistakes people are making is they bet way too big in position. You just don't need to bet larger than like 20% because stacks are so shallow that you can get the money in anyways. And so a lot of like 20 to 25% sizing is used by the in position player. And one of the other things that I did was provided the out of position player with smaller check raise sizings. And what we're going to see today in some of these hands is actually the use of something that looks a little, I might say fishy, but it actually makes a lot of sense in how the solver is running it, is that you do a lot of check min raising or check very small check raises. And the main reason is because you don't need to check raise very large, because once you check raise, you're either just shoving or checking the turn. And it doesn't really benefit you from check raising much larger than the minimum because the SPR on the turn will already be less than 1. So we're going to look at some of those situations today too. But hopefully that's kind of a summary. If you weren't here for last week, I think you should go back and watch my webinar from last week that will give you kind of some of the fundamentals. And what we got here now on my poker tracker database is, again, called the pre-flop raise. We were out of position, and the effective stack sizes were between 25 and 60 big blinds. Here, up here, it's sorted by position. So we'll look at some of these cutoff ones first. Yeah, so Warlock says show check raise to a size that gets the SPR to about 1 on the turn. Yeah, and a lot of times it's just you just need like a check min raise, and it ends up feeling weird, but ends up being pretty effective. And so we'll see some examples of that. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to just go ahead and replay all these hands in the reports, and then let's actually start from. No, we're going to start from the pocket 9 spot. And one of the things we're going to focus on today is how wide to continue from out of position. And I know I talked about people overfold, which is true, but there's a lot of spots here where we're just in such a rough spot out of position, but we do overfold in terms of the bet size that we're facing, in terms of what we're supposed to defend based off pot odds. So we're going to get into that. And I ran simp models for some of these hands. Some of them I'm didn't, and we will just go through. So this hand here. So we face a raise from under the gun. This has to be like final 2 tables of a tournament. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure, but there's definitely got to be some ICM pressure on me. With the ICM pressure, my 3-betting range is actually going to be really tight here. I'm probably even maybe flatting a hand like jacks here, possibly even a hand like queens here if we're at like the final 2 tables. I still play a lot of hands. I'm just not 3-betting very much other than like kings, aces, do some shoving pre-flop. Actually, probably not much shoving with the player covering me, but 9s I think is a pretty easy call here. And we can't see the sizing here. Not going to let us see it. So we face a really small squeeze here from the button, and let's see if it's going to be easier to see here in a second what sizing this was. I believe he made it like, why can't I see the sizing here? Okay, I was able to see it earlier. I don't know why that's so weird. He made it 600,000. Okay, so it went 160. This guy's all in for 116,000, and this guy made it 600,000 here. So first question here: what are you guys mostly doing here with 9s? Are you guys shoving? Are you calling? What are you guys primarily doing here with pocket 9s? Yep, I like most answers. Most people are saying call. I agree that we want to call. First, we want to call just because I don't think 8s are ever in this range. The squeezing range is going to be pretty, I don't think that there's a lot of, we isolate ourselves to a lot of better pairs. We're going to get a good price. We're going to go post swap with this hand. Also, the ICM considerations here definitely makes this not a jam. So we're going to see a flop here. And there's about 1.6 in the pot. We got about 3.3. So we're at that same 2 SPR here. Queen 6-5 rainbow. We check, and this player bets small, bets about 380,000 here into 1.7. What are you guys doing here with pocket 9s? Do you check calling, check raising? What are we doing here with 9s? You guys folding? Okay, a lot of people saying call. No one's saying fold. And then what would you guys do with a hand like, what would you guys do with a hand like 7-6 of spades? And what would you do with what would you guys do with king queen here? King queen of diamonds. Okay, some people are saying, a lot of people are saying check raise the king queen. Okay. So I called here with the 2 9s. Yeah, I think I'd much rather check raise if I was going to check raise a hand for protection. Um, I would much rather check raise a hand like I think 7s would be a better check raise than 9s, being that it has the backdoor straight draw or has more ways to turn an open ender. A hand like 7 6 also when it's behind has 5 outs. 9s here I just don't really think we ever want to check raise. A lot of our check raising range is going to be a lot of strong queen X hands. What would you guys do here with pocket 6s? Good. A lot of people are saying call. I think I would just call here as well with pocket 6s. The one thing that's a little weird in this spot, normally it would always be a call here, I think, with 6s, but because we got an all-in player here, it's a little less likely we're going to face bluffs later on because this pot, this 1.6 and also, I don't know if the side pot here on Poker Tracker does it, but yeah, I think calling here is pretty standard. Turn is a 7. Are you guys always checking here? Do you guys ever want to lead? What do you guys think here on the turn? Are you always going to check with your range, or do you have hands that you want to lead? So everyone's saying check. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a little bit of leading here on this turn, but because the SPR is so low, a lot of our 7/8s probably check raise anyway. So I think checking range here is probably fine. It goes check, check. And the river is the 4 of hearts. What do you guys think here with 2 9s here? Are you guys ever going to, are you guys checking here with 2 9s? Are you gonna bet with 2 9s? What are your guys thoughts here with on this spot? Does anyone ever hear bluffing with 2 9s? So I really considered bluffing here with 2 9s. I really think we're at like the bottom of our range here with 2 9s. So if we think here, if we have pocket 8s, we made a straight. If we have pocket 7s, we made a set. 6s and 5s are obviously a set. Queen X, we check raise like a lot of our ace queen, king queen. Maybe we have queen jack or like queen jack suited about it. But I find it really hard for us to have a worse hand here than 9s, other than maybe like ace 6 of spades or ace 6 of clubs or ace 5 of clubs or ace 5 of diamonds. Yes, I can see this, Matt. Matt, I can see your message. You can't see other people's comments. It's really, really, really hard for us to have like Jack 10 of diamonds. I think we just fold on the flop. So I really think we're at like the stone bottom of our range. And I remember in game tanking a long time, and I was really tempted to bet like 1.4 million to try to fold out a hand like 10s or jacks. I don't think they're going to fold kings. I don't think they're going to fold aces here. But I can target like some queen X and 10s and jacks a lot with like a half pot, like 1.4 million bet. And I think that would be pretty effective. In game, I checked and we faced a check back from the person, the villain, and they showed 2 jacks and we lose the pot here. I thought this was a really interesting spot on the river here. And here, this is a big thing I think in 3-bet pots. People don't realize how strong ranges are. And pocket 9s here are really, I think, the stone bottom of our range. And I think I ran this one. Let me see here. Queen 6-5. Don't tell me I didn't run this hand. Yeah, this is one of the hands I don't think I ran. Now it sucks because this is a very interesting hand. Okay, so I don't have the PO solver for this. But kind of my thinking here is it's really hard for us to have a worse hand. It's really hard for us to have a worse hand here than pocket nines. If you can think of the chat, what hand do we have that has a worse hand? That I think nines is probably one of our better hands to bluff here to get pocket tens, pocket jacks. Yeah, we can check and win against like ace king. We have some showdown value, but we also just don't have any bluffs. And so even though we can win at showdown with nines, we need to turn a hand like this into a bluff to offset all of our pocket eights, pocket sevens, pocket sixes, like queen X that we didn't. We have a lot of hands that want to value bet now. And in order to value bet those hands, we need some offsets and we need some bluffs. And I find it very hard to find a hand worse than nines in order to do that with. What size would I bet here with? I think something like 1.2 to 1.4. I think that would be pretty good to target, even to put a lot of pressure on hands like kings and some queen X hands. No, I don't think villain ever would chip jacks here. I don't think I've ever seen someone like shove jacks here to try to get it off here. I don't think anyone, I'm not worried about getting bluff raise here at all. 7-8 would be, well, 7-8's a straight, so it wouldn't be a good bluff. Ace king off, I don't have in my range. I would have shoved pre-flop. I think ace king is just a pure fold on the river here. I just don't see people ever really shoving the river here. So this is a spot, and the key concept here is that when you're in 3-bet pots, ranges get very tight by the river, and it's very hard. You have to turn hands into bluffs that don't feel natural to turn into bluffs here. And I think this is one of the hands that I really think I was supposed to turn into a bluff here, because it becomes very difficult for me then to find other hands to bluff with. And I don't see people like with like 2.4 million here in the pot. I don't see a hand like kings checking back on the turn here really that often. Like kings and aces, I think just bet I think they're just betting again with like a 1.2 SPR. I think aces and kings and even like a hand like ace queen are just kind of stacking off here on the turn. And so I think this is one of our worst hands here to probably turn into a bluff. I wish I had written that one, but pretty cool hand here. I don't think I ever want to jam here. And the main reason I don't want to jam is that I just don't think it makes much sense of our range with a 4 to a straight on the board. Like betting, like we turn all his hands basically into bluff catchers with a smaller bet than an all-in. And so, and the button can still have a hand like pocket eights potentially. The button could still have, you know, I don't think the button's necessarily capped. So I don't think I ever really use a jam here. I would have been check folding here, yes. If he bet. All right, next hand. So we open king jack offsuit in the cutoff of a 40 big blinds. Player on the button 3-bets. In a standard situation, are you guys folding here? Or are you guys calling? What are you guys doing here pre-flop? Do you guys ever 4-bet this hand? Okay, most people are saying calling. A couple of people are saying 4-bet. Yeah, so in my default ranges, this is a call, but against tighter players on the button, I would start to fold this hand. We can pull up the HUD really quick, and this player has an 11% 3-bet. It's only over 60 hands. So against something like that, I'm just going to continue with a call. Most of my 4-bets here are going to be all-ins. And so my 4-bets are going to be like ace deuce through h5 suited. I'm going to shove some like pocket 10s are better, pocket 9s potentially as well. I think I ran this one. Flop comes ace of hearts, 8 of hearts, jack of, or 5 of diamonds. If it's suited, I would call or shove. Probably, you can mix a call and a shove. This hand ends up being a pretty good, decent hand to 4-bet shove with, but as a standard, I normally call. Ace deuce through ace 5 suited actually end up being your best shoves. And the reason is that they play pretty poorly out of position, but they always have really good equity against a calling range. So against like queens and jacks, we have an overcard, you have the wheel straight possibility, you have a good blocker in the ace to you block the strongest parts of their calling range. You get a fold out hands like king jack offsuit. You can fold out hands like ace nine offsuit that are common bluffs here, ace eight offsuit that are bluffs. Shoving with these small suited aces works really well here from out of position. So we face ace eight five with two hearts and the opponent checks, and we face a bet of 3,300. What are you guys doing here with king jack? Are you guys folding? Are you calling? Do you ever check raise? All right, most people saying folding. I agree. What if the opponent bet something like 1,500 here? What would you do with the king of hearts, jack of diamonds? If the opponent bet 1,500, what would you do? So a lot of people are saying they would call. Some people are saying they would check raise. So a little bit more of a question here. And what type of hands are you going to use to make up a lot of your? Sorry, let's ask this: if you're the in position player, if you're NH to Cali, should you be continuation betting your entire range here, or should you be having a check back range on this ace eight five flop? You guys going to bet range, and for what sizing, or are you going to check back? So a lot of people are saying bet entire range. A lot of people are saying they'd bet quarter pot for their entire range. Okay, so what you're going to see here from my opponents, first they bet way too large. So I think our strategy here as the in position player is I'm going to bet about 20% of the pot. So my standard bet c-bet size in here is going to be something like 1,200, 12 to 1,500, somewhere around there. On the large side, it would be like 2,000. I don't think there's any need to bet larger than 12 to 2, like 1,200 to 2,000. That's number one. Two, on this ace high board here, I think we do want some checkbacks. And the reason we do want to have some of our range to check backs is we do have a lot of hands that do want to check back. So for example, kings, queens, jacks. We do have some hands that want to check back like that, so we can build a range to protect those hands. And second, what type of hands do we call with from out of position? Our range from out of position, let me pull this up, ace eight five. So out of position, we have pretty good coverage here on the ace. We have ace six, ace seven, ace eight, ace nine, ace 10, ace jack, ace queen, ace jack off, ace 10 off, ace nine off. We have a lot of, we even flat aces a lot here at 40 big blinds. We're shoving like 10s plus, ace king suited, ace king off, ace queen off, ace deuce through ace five suited. A little bit of that king jack suited. Someone asked if we would four bet. A little bit of queen jack suited, we four bet shove. A little bit of nines, we shove. So we have really good coverage on this ace high and these king high boards. On the ace and king high boards, we have very, very good coverage. And so your likely strategy is not going to include entire range bet because we do have pretty good coverage on this board. So let's take a look here. Let's look at the hand here. So yeah, this opponent bets half pot and we just fold here, but I think it's still an interesting spot to look at just to kind of learn these base strategies. So ace eight five, just to refresh, this is the in position range, very polarized, a lot of offsuit broadways, pretty much 10s plus, ace queen suited plus pure. The bluffs come from like some lower suited kings and a lot of this lower 9x and 8x suited, and a few lower suited aces. And then the out of position range, I tightened it up a little bit. You can have like some people have king four, king three suited in there, but pretty standard flatter range, pairs, suited connectors, suited nines, suited eights, a lot of suited kings, a lot of suited aces, these king jack, queen jack. We do have some of the offsuit broadways, which at deeper stacks we won't. And again, for sizings, I gave a 20%, a 30%, 60%, 90. And here I gave a 2x, 2.5, 3x. I give a bunch of different check raise sizings so that we can kind of learn that. So ace eight five, we're checking, we're never leading from out of position. And as you can see here, the in position player is checking back about 26% of the time. And a lot of this here, the green part, how we build that check back range, it's pretty simple. That we have hands like aces, pocket kings are a big check back, aces are a big check back, queens are checking back a lot, jacks a little less, tens a little less, nines a little less, because these hands want to bet for protection. And then we check back like some of these ace six suited, ace four suited, ace 10 off. These are checking back a little bit. So we're betting a little bit. There's a little bit of checking with everything, but it's mainly built about like aces, kings, check back a few of these weaker ace X hands, and then some of the, it looks like some of the diamond hands we actually check back a lot. We end up checking back a lot of the backdoor flush draws, it seems, and some 8X. So there is a check back range there, and I think population is pretty much range betting here. I think most people just bet their entire range here. They think I 3-bet, there's an ace on the board, I'm going to bet everything. And the reason is that we don't have to is, first, the SPR is only 2.5 to 1, so there's 250 in the stacks to play and 100 in the pot. So we can check back ace 6 suited and still get all the money in. We can check back aces and get all the money in. Ace 10 off can get all the money in on the turn in the river. So that's the main reason we can still check back. When they do bet, if you look here at the sizing, it primarily is, it's not using, so we have 20%, 30, 60, 90, and then an all-in sizing. Pretty much always just using this 20% sizing. A little bit of the 30, I would just simplify here. You can just bet like 20 to 25%, I think is good. I think 30% here is, pretty large. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. You can actually just size down a lot in these 3-bet pots. If I'm in position and I check call, are there any turns that you would lead? We can take a look at that in a second. So let's take a look first. First, let's see versus, I have bet 60. I don't have a 50% pot size. This guy bet 50% of the pot. And if you see here, like king jack, even with the heart, just a pure fold. Queen 10 of diamonds, queen 9 of diamonds, all these backdoor hands are just pure folding. Okay. We call all our aces. Interesting enough here against this half pot sizing, pocket nines is just folding. So versus this half pot bet, we're pretty much just folding pocket nines versus this big bet. Sevens and sixes are just folding. Even hands like, even like a king 8. Some of these 8X hands are pretty indifferent. They're sliver of folds here, but we can play pretty tight here because when he bets larger, we get a fold more, and we have so many aces that we can just continue with aces, all our flush draws. And notice now we're not check raising very much. Versus this large bet, it should be more polarized, and we're just check calling out of position now versus the larger bet. When we face that smaller, let's say he did go with a 20% sizing here. Now is where you start to see a lot of check raising. Here we are check raising. I put up a lot of sizings here. It's using a little bit of everything. We'll see if we can simplify this. But again, even against a 20% bet, we would probably have to continue here. King of hearts jack is kind of the threshold hand. We're still folding. Even against a 20% bet here, we're still folding all these jack 10 of diamonds, queen 10 of diamonds, king 10 of diamond type hands. Why are we folding so many 8s, calling so many 8s, but folding so many 9s? We want to call with 8 because if we're behind, we have 5 outs with the 8 plus our backdoor flush draw, versus with pocket 9s, we only have 2 outs to improve. There's not really a difference between a pair of 8s and pocket 9s on this board, other than pocket 9s beat a pair of 8s. But an 8 blocks our opponent from having an 8, and it also, we have more equity in terms of if we're behind, we have more of a chance to improve. So let's look at some of these check raises here that we talked about. Here now we start to use the standard sizing is somewhere between 2.5 to 3x is what we want to do. So on a lot of these high card ace, high king, high boards, we will use a little bit of a larger check raise sizing here. Ace 8, pretty much always check raising here. Ace 10 or better. Seems like it's pretty much always check raising. Some of our flush draws are check raising, but all of our 8x is calling, other than some of the weaker ones that want protection. So a hand like 8-6 or 7-6, sorry, 8-6, 8-7, these ones that have like additional equity in terms of they have a backdoor straight draw call. Some of the kind of crazy check raises here you see are like pocket 4s and 3s and deuces, which I don't see anyone making. I'm just folding these hands mostly. But it does check raise these hands a little bit to try to generate some folds. And also they have 2 outs to improve to a set and also the wheel. And they just get some of their air to fold. That's all it's trying to accomplish. If you look, they're just check raising to like 50 to try to generate some folds. Some people asked here in our hand if it had gone check, if there was any cards that we would lead. And we do a decent amount of leading, it looks like. It looks like across most of the boards we'll lead about 30% of the time, 40% of the time, but we're going to try to get through some more hands here. But I kind of wanted to touch base on these ace high boards. The key concept here I want to point out, if you're in position, you can see bet really small and you can start to develop a check back range a lot on these boards. And remember, it's really hard to float here out of position. This is a hand that I felt tempted to play if it was a smaller bet here. But even versus the smaller bets, this hand is just really hard to play on this board. If this was a queen 8-5 with 2 hearts, I'd be almost always check raise this hand, because then we actually have additional equity against a queen. But on this ace high board, we're just drawing almost stone dead with this hand so often that we're just pure folding this hand to a check, even like a 25% pot bet almost. If we get check raise and we get jammed on, what hands are we calling off with? So when we check, we bet 20, and let's say they check raise to 60. We are folding 26% of the time, almost never re-raising. We call with all our aces, of course. We're calling with 9s or better. Pocket 8s, pocket 7s is pretty much a fold call. I don't know if I find this call with 7s. Most people don't. The thing is population doesn't check raise enough in 3-bet pots. And so I proceed very carefully. Like these hands like 10-9 of diamonds, I mostly just fold. Jack-9 of diamonds is in there. Queen-9 of diamonds, I'm pretty much just folding these hands. These are all flush draws here. And so we're not really ever shoving is the key thing here. I mean, I'm not continuing ever with Jack-10 here. Basically, what the solver's trying to do is make sure that it's calling enough here. This player is risking 60 to win 180. So it's actually trying to defend MDF, which would be 25% here. So the solver is actually trying to call enough to prevent the out of position player from check raising any 2 cards. And so doing that involves calling some Jack-10. So that's part of the when we get check raised and then they jam, we pretty much just call with an ace and our flush draws. That's what we're doing. We just call with an ace and our flush draws. Some of these ace-10 hands are even starting to mix folds. So we'll move along here. Here, ace queen. So we're here in the cutoff versus button at 30 big blinds. We open, we get 3-bet, folds back to us. What are you guys doing here pre-flop? Are you guys shoving, or are you guys calling, or are you guys folding? I'm not going to show stats. Just think of your default strategy. Obviously, you can adjust it, but what is your guys' default strategy here? So my default would be to shove here. At 30, this is a hand that we just want to shove and realize all our equity with and deny equity to the button. I think I made a mistake here and I just called. I think this is a pretty a decent mistake. I think I'm giving up some EV here. I'll look at it to see if maybe this player was really okay. So this is why I just called. This guy has a 1% 3-bet. So this is why I just called here. He's playing 16-11-1, so a pretty tight player. Seems to be why I just called. Ace 10-2. I'm not going to ask if you guys are leading here. I think everyone's doing. What's your guys' strategy here if you're the button? Are you guys betting range? Do you guys check back some? Do you guys check back some? Are you betting range, and what sizing are you using? And if you check back, what types of hands are you checking back? What do you guys do here with pocket kings if you're the in-position player? What do you guys do with king, queen of clubs if you're the in-position player? King, queen of clubs, what would you guys do? So a lot of people are kind of a mix between check and bet. If I had king, queen of clubs here, I'd probably check back. And the reason why is I don't really want to get check raised with that hand. And we have a hand that's very strong with a lot of good back doors. So when you get really shallow SPRs here, this applies to 3-bet pots. And this also applies to, like, so what would you guys do here with, let's say you had king 7 of diamonds that you 3-bet pre-flop. What would you do with king 7 of diamonds here on the flop? King 7 of diamonds, what are you doing? So, okay, this is why I asked. A lot of people are saying bet and check. I think I want to check king 7 of diamonds here on the flop. The reason why is that it's a hand that we're in a really bad spot if we get check raised, because a lot of the check raise range is going to be ace X, and we are going to be close to barely having enough equity to call off. When you're very short, and when I say short, I mean the SPR is very shallow here. You want to check back a lot of your draws that can't bet call off. So like king, queen of diamonds, queen, jack of diamonds, like those hands can bet call off here because they have additional equity with the straight draw. Hands like king 7 of diamonds, I think we want to be checking back here. And make sure, then we can call any bet on the turn and make sure we always see a river with our hand. And we can get a hand like king, queen, or king, jack to fold by the turn of the river anyways with those hands, so we can start bluffing later on with like the king 7 of diamonds. If we were deeper, yes. Yes, so when you're a short stack, we should play draws more passively. Yes, as a general rule of thumb, when you're in position and the SPR is like, let's say less than 3, okay? You want to be very passive. You don't want to put yourself into a position where you're bet folding a very strong equity hand. And so you're going to play a lot more passively with your hands, like 9-8 of diamonds here. If you had it that you 3-bet pre-flop, you'd want to check back. You don't want them to just shove with an ace, and then you have to fold 9-8 of diamonds because you're not getting the right price. King, queen of hearts. I would rather bet king, queen of hearts here and check back king, queen of diamonds, or king, queen of clubs, for example. I'd much rather bet king, queen of hearts because I'm happy to just fold that hand if I get check raised, or just peel one off and try to hit a jack. 9-8 of hearts I would bet, for example, but I would check back 9-8 of diamonds. So this player checks back on the button. Oh, sorry. What are you guys doing here on the turn? So the turn is an ace. We have ace queen here. What are you guys doing with ace queen? Are you guys betting or are you guys checking? Are there any hands that you want to lead here, or do you guys check with everything? Are we betting or are we checking? Okay, seeing a lot of people are saying leading. So I think I make a mistake here. I don't think we should be leading here. I bet 2K. I think we should just be checking here. For the same concept that even if he does check back again here on the button, we can just shove the river for 12,000 and we're betting like 1.5x pot where we can get the money in on the river here with ace queen. We also don't have a lot of hands that want to lead other than like ace X here. Like, what do you guys want to do if we have king 10 here? What do you guys want to do if we have king 10? Yeah, check. Agreed. What hands do we want to bluff with here? What hands do you guys want to bluff with? Yeah, diamonds, stuff like that. Yeah, we want to bet with some diamonds, bluff with some diamonds and stuff. I think this is a spot where in position is not capped. They can still have some ace X hands. They could have pocket, well, they can't have pocket aces now. Maybe a hand's like tens checked back every once in a while here. They're definitely going to have some ace X hands. I think, and I'm going to show this in the solver. When the SPR here is so shallow and the in-position player can still just have trip aces here a lot, we're just going to check range here with the ace queen. And when it goes check, check, we're just going to either check or overbet the river to get it all in here. So I bet 2,000, player calls. 9 of diamonds, what are you guys doing here on the river? You guys checking or are you guys putting the guy all in? So Michelle says, if you check, they can realize their equity for free. That is true, but what equity do they really have? We give them a chance to hit 2 outs with kings, queens, or jacks. That's about it. Really no other hand. Yeah. So I end up shoving here and in position folds. And I think I kind of butchered this hand on a lot of spots. So people that aren't value betting here, this range is just kings, queens, and jacks. A ton. Or it's like ace 5. Put them to the test. So let's take a look here. Ace 10 deuce. All right. All right. So this is at 30 big blinds. So this is the range I kind of gave that the in position player is going to have like tens or better, ace queen suited, a few bluffs. I gave them a little bit of sevens, eights, and nines, and then like ace 9 off, ace 8 off, king jack, queen jack, queen 10. Less bluffs because we're shallower. And they're shoving some of the value. So this is the range I gave the in position player. It's not perfect, but it's what I went with. And then out of position, this is our range. It looks kind of sloppy here, but it's just kind of a mix of everything. Some of these hands we're just shoving for 30 big blinds now. For 40, we're not. So this is the range I gave us. So we are checking, and it looks like this one it wants. I don't know why we're now starting to bet more on this board. I would have thought there'd been a little bit more checking here with kings and queens and jacks. It's going and it's betting those a lot more, but I'm not going to read too much into that because I don't know too well how to explain the difference between the last board. When it checks, the turn was the ace of hearts, and this is the main concepts I was talking about. So this is after it goes check, check on the flop, and we're just pure checking here on the turn. And the reason we want to pure check here is we still carry a lot of this air. King 5, king 6, king 7, king queen, king jack off, queen jack off, queen 9 suited, queen 10 suited. Those are pair 10s, but like 8 7, 7 6. We have a lot of junk in our range still. And if you look, we're still at a very, very big equity disadvantage. And our range is very polarized. We basically either have the nuts with an ace or nothing. If you see here, it's either green or orange. So because the stack to pot ratio is so short, this is why we're just checking everything with our polarized range, because we can just have the same range if it goes check, check again, and just shove all our ace X on the turn on the river and balance it with bluffs. So yeah, Warlock says king, king, queen, queen have backdoor straight draws on this board versus on the ace 8X. That makes a lot of sense. And also the 10 hits the bluffing range a bit more. So in position has more like queen 10 off, 10 9 suited a little bit. And I think a lot of it too has to be that they don't have a ton of ace X on this board though. A lot of their range is jacks through kings here. Anyways, so that's why we're checking here always on this turn card, is our range is just so polarized. If we were at a much deeper SPR here, yes, we'd want to start betting ace queen, but we don't really have an incentive we don't need to bet ace queen now to get the money in, because we can just get the money in on the river anyways. When we check now, like here, if it goes check, check, and let's just say like the 3 of hearts comes off, you see we just bet this 160 or check. So 160 is all in here for 160% of the pot. And we just mix shoving all our aces, and then we're bluffing, it looks like, with these small, we have pocket threes. We bluff with some of these small pairs, pretty much just any two low cards, it looks like. And then we check a few of our aces, like ace 10, some of the strong ones just to protect our range. But I would mostly just always bet, bluff them. Anyway, when we do bet, let's say we bet 30, in position just continues with calls with a lot of these 10s, jacks, queens, and kings. They call. Now when that 3 of hearts comes off, we shove. We start to generate folds with kings and queens. And if we go, hold on one sec. Yeah, I think the main reason is we're generating more of a chance to allow the person to start bluffing on the turn. If it does go check and then bet on the turn, we go pretty crazy now, check raising a lot of these ace-x hands. So I think the two biggest mistakes here I make are pre-flop, I think I should just shove this hand. And then on the turn, my range is so weak that I still think I want to check this hand on the turn. I think population just bets this hand. And when they do bet this hand, their turn checking range becomes very, very weak. So our exploit as the in position here versus the double check is we want to start bluffing here because I have a lot of like really bad hands in my range here, like king 5 suited, that we just want to get to fold. Yes, the villain would never fold a flush here on the river. Oh, and we're going to look at what does the villain do with king 7 of diamonds on the flop. Check. So if you see here, we're betting most of the time here on this board. But if you see here, the one hands that check a little bit, like king 7 of diamonds, queen 8 of diamonds, like jack 8 of diamonds has a 50% check here versus jack 8 of hearts, jack 8 of spades, jack 8 of clubs are always betting here. So it's not as profound on this board, but we're more likely to check the flush draws than the non-flush draws here. We're going to go through a few more hands so we can get through faster. All right. I raise here with queen 10 of clubs. Get 3-bet. We call. King 8-8. Face a check, and we face this about 30% pop bet, a little under like 28%. What are you guys doing here with queen 8 of clubs? You guys calling, folding, check raising? What are you guys doing here? So a lot of people are saying calling here. What do you guys think? Should your range be mostly check raising or check calling on this board? So this is going to be one of those boards that, if you guys think about our range here, what does our range look like that wants to continue? What types of hands are we continuing here? A king, an 8. Yeah, some various backdoors. And how are kings and 8s doing on this board? What do we want? If we had a king or an 8 here, like, do we just want to check call or do we want to check raise them? Are these good hands? Are these strong enough hands to stack off with? If we have king jack here, is that a strong enough hand to just stack off here for 2x pot? Yeah, so if you remember from last week what we talked about, a lot of our top pair hands end up just check raising a ton and just getting it in. A king is a really strong equity hand here, and we only don't have that much money left to play here. I went and check raised to 15K with this hand, queen 10 of clubs, and generated a fold. And let's go ahead and look at the strategy here. I think I messed this hand up too. You guys are gonna see me mess up a lot of hands. I play badly out of position 3-bet pots. They're difficult. It's not that they're difficult. They're actually pretty easy to play, but once you learn kind of the general strategy, but the general strategy is like unintuitive. So ranges, same 40 big blind ranges we were working with last week here, polarized 40 big blind range. and out of position, a lot of king X hands. So we check in positions, betting mostly about 80% of the time, checking back some kings, little queens, jacks, tens, mostly betting. They do have a little bit of suited 8x. Again, sizing 20%. Only really using the 20% sizing. And when we do face that bet, I want you guys to look here. We fold 50% of the time, we call 12%. And so what I was talking about is that we really continue with when we have a king, when we have an 8, when we have an ace high with a backdoor flush draw, and when we have a pocket pair. Those are the only hands we ever continue here. And all those hands, if you look like, are all very strong equity hands. All the kings are 60+% equity hands, 65% equity hands. All our 8s are obviously like 90% equity hands. These backdoor, like ace queen suited, ace 10 with a backdoor, ace 9 with a backdoor. These are the hands that we're using as bluffs. So I check raise like queen 10 of clubs, which is a mistake here. And the reason is I just have a lot of better hands to continue. So like my queen 10 of clubs here is just a pure fold. But what we're doing here is we just basically check raise to like somewhere between 50 and 60 with pretty much every king, every 8. And then a lot of these like ace 9, ace 10, a lot of these ace highs with the backdoor draw. And the reason is we have an overcard to a king. So if they have like king, queen, king, jack, we have a way to improve to versus a king. We can turn equity, and we have a lot of, look at our range explorer here. We have a king 19% of the time. And so like 26% of our range is a king or better. So almost 1/3 of our range is made up by this kings, 8s, and aces. So that part of our range is so strong that we can just check raise all of it, and then we can balance that out. Our bluffs are basically these ace high backdoor draws. And then a little bit like, I'm pretty much folding these. I don't find these check raises ever, but like this makes sense to me, like check raising like ace 9 of hearts here. That makes sense to me. Check raising king 9 here makes sense to me. Check raising all our 8x makes sense to me. And then folding pretty much everything else. And so we're ended up pretty much with just almost never check calling and just check raising here a ton. Hold on, I'm just reading the questions here. So you guys are like misunderstanding. Like when we check raise here, we don't get called by a king or better. Like this person still has hands like pocket 10s, pocket jacks, pocket queens. Like they're not going to fold to a bet here. If we check raise 2.5x here to 50, if they're calling, if they fold 10s, jacks, queens, if they fold all these hands, then these hands are just printing money, and these hands are printing money to check raise with deuces, threes, fours, fives, sixes. If they're folding all those queens, and jacks, all our bluffs are just making a ton of money. Okay, they need to call this bet really wide because we're risking 50 chips to win 170 chips here. So they're not supposed to fold very often. And if they do fold a lot, which I think population folds ace 10 off here to a check raise. I think they fold ace 9 off here to a check raise. I think they're folding queen 9 suited with the back door, jack 9 suited with the back door. If they're folding all of these hands, then yes, we should be check raising all these deuces, threes, fours, fives, sixes. We're going to make a lot of money check raising. And maybe then we start to call a little bit more with these weaker kings, and we're just overweight bluffs with suited aces and small pairs. That would be our exploit there. So if they are overfolding a ton, yes, I might start calling with these king X hands and check raising 8x and all of these bluffs. If they're overfolding, I'm just check raising every suited ace, every small pair. That would be the exploit there, because they need to call really wide when we're only risking 50 chips to win 170 chips. Yes, we don't need to protect, but we also want to get value from our hand and not let, that's the main reason we want to start check raising. We're check raising for value here, not for protection. No, I think check calling these king X hands is fine. Some of these weaker King X hands for sure, like King Jack and King Queen, I'm almost always going to check raise, and then I'll start to call as I get into these lower King X hands. So my strategy here is a lot like I call a lot of these lower pair King hands. I'm check raising the stronger King X. I check raise all my 8X. I'm check raising all these backdoor ace high flush draws that have an overcard. And then I'm starting to check raise. I don't find it as much, but I'm going to start check raising some of these smaller pairs because if they're overfolding a lot, these are going to be really, really good check raises here because they have 2 outs to improve and we can start to get folds from like 9s, 10s, jacks, and queens on the turn. So, and as you see, like the opponent should almost never be shoving. And if they do shove, we just have a very easy decision. We call with an 8 and we call with a king. Like our strategy is very simple. If they shove, and that's why they don't shove. When they call, we start to slow down a little bit, and we kind of play a checking game with the opponent. So we start to check some turns, like on the deuce, we just keep betting with our 8X, and we check a lot of our King X hands now. And then we bet some bluffs, but we're mostly just betting the King X, especially like now on the deuce of spades, we keep betting with like ace 9 of spades, ace 10 of spades, ace 7 of spades, ace 6 of spades. We're betting with those hands, and then we bet with our 8X hands, and we check a lot of our King X hands, and these are kind of our check call hands now. When we check and the opponent bets, those are the hands that we're now calling off with as our King X hands. No, so we actually play pretty passively on the turn once they check call. If we turn the flush draw, it looks like actually it likes to use a small sizing here. I should have given a smaller sizing here on the turn. It looks like I only gave, why is it not giving me a 30% sizing? Oh, that is a 30% sizing. So there's 175 left to play and 200 in the pot. I actually think we want to be betting something like 40 or 50. Like we're betting like 20 to 25% of the pot or checking. If you look here, we can shove for 175 into 200, or we can bet 60, which is 30%, and it's never shoving. We're only betting small or checking, and so I think I should have given a smaller sizing than 30%, and it probably would be like a bet 20%, so we can actually have some bluffs here. And then we just bet 20%, call off with our nut flush draws, call off with our 8s and kings, and it allows us to keep barreling some. Yeah, and the main reason that we're check raising so much is because they're betting almost everything. They're betting 80% of their range. And if you look at it, they got a lot of shit in their range. They got a lot of, sorry, this is the wrong range. There's a lot of crap in this range that's just c betting here. So we want to check raise. Just, we can win the pot a lot. We want to check raise with some of these small pairs to get queen jack off the fold, queen 10 off the fold, jack 10 off the fold, ace 10 off the fold, ace 9 off the fold, ace queen, ace jack. There's a lot of like really bad hands in this range. And that's why we get a check raise so much. Yeah, I would kind of agree, Martin. So in general, the strategy is against, for example, against you, but against the general population, it would be better to go for King X calling, exploit, and over bluff everything plus 8X. Yeah, I think check raising King X is still fine though, because they're still gonna, like, a king is such a strong hand though on this board. Like, if we look here, I mean, a king is the king queen suited is almost 70% equity against the range here. I don't hate check raising. I would check call some of my king X, but I think check raising a king, like you're gonna get stacked either way. You're never folding a king at all with less than 2 SPR here. So that's kind of the key point here. We're so shallow that a lot of the money's going in anyways with these kings, and we want to get the money in now against some hands that have to continue. Yeah, population is going to have a general tighter pre-flop range, but they're also going to have 10s, jacks, queens, ace, queen. They're going to have a lot of hands that are weak on this board, a lot of ace high hands. So So let's see here. Okay. 9-8 suited, we raise, we get 3-bet. We're playing about 50 big blinds deep. What are you guys doing here? Most of you guys calling. Do you guys ever 4-bet here? Do you guys ever fold here? Yep, I think this hand's a pretty clear call. We check on this board, and we don't really have a decision here. What would you guys do if you had Jack 9 of diamonds here? Okay, what are you guys doing with King 7 of diamonds here? Versus what looks like to be like an 80% bet. What are you doing with King 7 of diamonds? Yeah, most people are saying fold. I would fold here as well. I would fold a lot of my King X, a lot of my Jack X here. Like I'd rather call with 9-8 of hearts here than King 7 of diamonds. So on this type of board versus this large of a bet, like unless we have like the King of hearts, we're pretty much folding a lot of our King X here. Like this is why this bet size here is kind of poor, because it just forces us to tighten up our range so much versus if they bet small, we get put to a spot where we have to call with a lot of hands. Ace 8 of diamonds here. To be honest, I might start folding here. I mean, it's an exploit fold, but I might start folding ace 8 of diamonds here against this line and this action. I'm going to play like pretty clean on this board. Okay, so we open the 7-8 of hearts. We get 3-bet. We're playing about 40 big blinds deep. Pretty large 3-bet here. Like 3.5x here. What are you guys doing with 8-7 of hearts? You guys folding? You guys calling? 4-betting? What types of hands are you bluffing with here? What would be hands that you'd want to 4-bet bluff with here? This is a regular for what it's worth, I think. Players playing 20-14 with a 7% 3-bet. On the button, they're 3-betting. Yeah, pretty low. It's a small sample size, but they're 3-betting, you know, on the tighter side, but still, they're going to have some bluffs. Yep, ace 5 suited. I think that's a very good 4-bet bluff. Ace, a lot of the small suited aces. I don't know where you're seeing it under the gun open here. Ace 9 off, ace 10 off, ace jack off. I think those are good ones. Yeah, versus this large of a 3-bet, a lot of my 4-bet bluffs are going to be all in. So I want like, there's 15K in the pot and this guy only has 60K behind. Like if I had the ace 5 suited here, I'm probably just ripping it, I think. Ace 5 suited, I think I just rip here. Ace 4 suited, I might rip like a king jack suited, something like that. King jack suited, king 10 suited, queen jack suited, ace deuce through ace 5 suited, ace queen off. Those are the types of hands. Maybe an ace jack off. We call 10 of spades, 4 hearts, 3 of spades, and we face like a 40% bet here. Pairs, 10s are better. Maybe 9s since it was such a large bet, but 10s or 9s is the kind of the cutoff point. Ace 10 off, I just call or fold. I might just fold against that large of a 3-bet. So we face a 40% sizing here with 7-8 hearts. What are you guys doing here? You guys folding? You guys calling? You guys check raising? Yep, I'm folding. I agree. Where would your check raise bluffs come from? What types of hands would you check raise bluff here? So let me ask you guys this. Which hand would you rather check raise here? 9-8 of spades or ace of spades, jack of diamonds? Which hand would you rather check raise? Ace of spades, jack of diamonds or 9-8 of spades? I think I would rather check raise ace of spades, jack. The reason is I don't want to check raise 9 of spades and get shoved on and be put in a really rough spot versus the ace of spades, jack. I have overcards. I can hit a pair with the ace of spades. We need to continue the hand. I'm not sure exactly which one's going to be better to check raise. Let's take a quick look. 10, 4, 3. Okay, we'll not run this one. Here it is. Okay, we check. In position, just betting range here. Now they're starting to use a little bit larger of a sizing on this 10 high board, a little more to protect against. Ranges are a little more capped. Like now the in position player has all the jacks, queens, kings, and aces that we never have, and those hands want to start to get money in now. Also these like ace 10, jack 10. The 10 is pretty good for the in position player. They hit all these offsuit 10x and jack x hands on the 10 high boards. So when we face that, we'll say 30% bet. So we were talking about 9-8 of spades or ace of spades, jack. And it looks like we're just check calling both of them. So same type of principle that we were talking about in position before with the flush draws. 9-8 of spades here, not quite strong enough to check raise and want to get it in right now. So we're going to just mostly check call with that hand. And the flush draws that we want to check raise with here are ones with an overcard. So ace 7 of spades, ace 6 of spades, king 6 of spades, king 5 of spades. We want to have an overcard to like pocket queens or pocket jacks because those are the main hands that we're going to get it in with. So having a king or an ace high flush draw. Queen 9 of spades, same thing, queen 8 of spades. And then some of these big hands like ace queen of spades, king queen of spades, they're just strong enough to check call. So as a general rule of thumb here, when we have a flush draw, we want to check raise the ones that get dominated hands to fold. So with like king 5 of spades here, we check raise. We get king queen of diamonds to fold. King 6 of spades here. We can turn, back some backdoor straight draws to shove them on the turn with. We do check raise like 6-5 of spades, 5-4 spades. These are strong enough hands to get in. But a lot of these lower flush draws are just calling. And a lot of these big flush draws are calling. And the reason is we don't really have a lot of incentive to check raise ace queen of spades because it's such a strong hand and we dominate a lot of their range still, and we never have to fold it anyways. So we can just check call off on the turn no matter what. These hands are kind of in between. These smaller flush draws we're check calling, and like if we face like a jam on the turn, we're just check folding a lot of them. Let's see here, ace of spades, jack, same thing. It's too strong of a hand to check raise, so we're just calling. So both hands were actually just a check call. A lot of our check raises here are coming from 10x, ace 10, king 10, queen 10, ace 10 off, and flush draws is where a lot of our check raises are coming from. And then some of these 5-4, a little bit of 6-5, mostly calling though. Again, you see these draws that aren't strong enough. So we reshove ace queen off pre-flop. Ace queen suited, we ended up just calling since it plays a little bit better post-flop. I wouldn't hate if you shoved ace queen suited pre-flop at all. I don't think that's awful. But the offsuit combo realizes equity worse, so we're going to check raise that hand more. I mean, shove that hand more pre-flop. So general principle here on flush draws is the main thing here to learn from this hand is a lot of hands like 9-8 of spades, 9-7 of spades, 8-7 of spades, 8-6 of spades. We're just getting such a good price. We're calling 30 to win a pot of 130. So we're just going to call with these hands, and we're check raising more with hands that have like a decent overcard and the ability to like turn some type of straight draw on the turn so that it can shove and realize all that equity on the turn. For that concept I was talking about with ace of spades, jack, that hand's just calling, but you see the same kind of concept applied here, where I'm like with queen jack or king jack with the king of spades or queen of spades, we do a little bit of check raising. And the reason is this actually is kind of a really good combo. It makes a lot of sense that we're blocking pocket kings, we block pocket jacks, we have an overcard, and we have equity to turn open-ended straight draws or we can then bluff on the flush completer with these type of hands. So these overcard hands, king queen, I guess is just strong enough to call with. But the queen jacks and king jacks, you see a little bit of check raising, which is kind of cool. I like to find these spots to check raise with these type of hands because I think population just overfolds when we check raise. And so I think these are pretty profitable here. So we're at about an hour and 10 minutes now. So we did a lot of button versus cutoff the last 2 weeks. If you guys like this format, I was thinking next week we could do small blind versus button. I think a lot of people were requesting that, where we 3-bet from the small blind and get called by the button or the cutoff. We can kind of go through the same process for that. And then after that, I think I want to get into some ICM stuff because I've been studying a lot of ICM lately. So let me know what you guys want. The format I'm gonna follow going forward is a little bit of theory about how the spot plays. So for example, small blind versus cutoff, we'll just kind of go through the general heuristics of how the spot plays. And then we're just gonna go through a lot of hand examples going through how we play that spot and mostly looking at the mistakes I've made, because the stuff I'm showing you is stuff that I'm studying. And so you're gonna see a lot of my mistakes, which I think is good. Can't find any material on 4-betting. So I try to talk about it for all these spots, what stuff worth 4-betting, cutoff versus button here, a lot of those small suited aces. Go through the questions here. So I'll answer questions for 5 minutes or so. So Matt says, I'm doing a lot of study, but I'm not retaining info easily, especially when I'm at the study. First, it could be you're not effectively studying. And second, it could be that, well, it takes a long time to learn the concepts. So it's not something you're going to study and then get perfectly the next time. I try to have one topic that I'm studying for the whole week and really focusing on that for the entire week of playing. Can I please share the chart of 180 examples? So this is here, there's some filters on here, but yeah, here I have ace-high boards. You see, remember these boards are checked a little bit more. I have all the frequencies and everything. Can clear. If there's a specific board texture you want to see here, I can kind of show you guys the general strategy right now. So if you want to see a specific type of board texture, like a 2 Broadway, ace-high, queen-high, monotone, suited type stuff. Yeah, ICM stuff I've been studying a lot, and population is just burning money. So literally population is just lighting money on fire, especially like final 2 tables, 3 tables, myself included. So I made a lot of adjustments. So I think we'll definitely get into some ICM stuff. How would I practice these concepts? My general theory of how I practice is I pick a spot, okay? So I pick a spot like button versus cutoff, okay? I run an aggregate report like this and I try to learn the overall strategy, okay? Overall strategy of how the spot plays is it's checked, the button bets a lot. There's certain boards that they do check more than others. And then the cutoff is forced to play a very aggressive check raise strategy. And I recognize it plays a lot like big blind versus in position open at shallow stacks. All right. Then what I do is I filter my database for that spot, so cutoff versus button, and I go through my hand histories, and I do it from the out of position spot. I'm doing it from the in position spots, and that's how I get a little more nuance into the studying to find little nuggets and stuff. So that's kind of how I'm going through it. When I say population, I play everything from $20 tournaments to $200 tournaments. So, I mean, I have a good sense for population. People want me to scroll through. The thing is Nicholas says, on the king 8-8 board against aggressive opponent, wouldn't you be check calling with most of the range to induce bluffs? The reason is no matter when you check call or you check raise, you're showing strength no matter what. When you check call, you are in a check call with a king, an 8, or like a suited ace. When you check raise, you're going to check raise with like a king, an 8, or a suited ace. So the only way to split your range then would be to like check call your king X and then try to develop a strong enough check calling range, like you check raise your 8x. So in those spots where even when you call, you're showing a lot of strength, they're going to shut down anyways when you call. So you might as well check raise and get the money in and allow yourself to bluff. Let me know if that makes sense, Nicholas. Nope, I don't work with Romero at all, but I think his content, I've taken some stuff away from his content. I don't know about sharing database stuff is where the site wants to go. How do I recommend studying specific spots without PO? Filter your poker tracker for specific spots. Okay, so say you want to learn these small blind versus big blind pots, and then you want to get out a program like Equilab and start to analyze spots. Most of my studying now uses PO in some form. Get with a group of friends, talk through hands in some spots. You want to learn how the general spots play. Watching videos, watching webinars. Yeah, so learning how the general spot plays and then going through your database and reviewing all your hands on that spot. Monotone. So monotone boards in general. There are only 4 monotone boards. There should be more. Oh, so here's all the monotone boards we got. So there's a couple ace high monotone boards, and they're very, very high checked. They're checking like over 50% of the time on these ace high monotone boards. Ace high, this one's bets more because it's ace queen, the 8-4, ace 4 deuce, ace 8-6, ace 4 always bets versus the non ace high boards, the rainbow ace high boards. So you can see the rainbow ace high boards check decent amount, especially when there's yeah. This is all for 40 big blinds effective. Shove. I'm shoving ace king for 25 big blinds from the blinds always. What do I suggest? A good way to study and learn ranges. I mean, it's just a memorization. I mean, not strict memorization, but it's just learning hand classes and how your ranges just like. It's just like quizzing yourself. If you want to use flashcards some way, finding a good way to quiz yourself on pre-flop ranges. Monotone boards, you're going to be checking a lot more because the out of position range is very, very suited heavy. Yeah, so Nick says, yes, when I check call on these boards, they shut down more than I would think. Exactly. So that's why you're just going to check raise because you want to get the money in. I wouldn't look too much into like, I think you guys are trying to, there's some people asking about like ace high boards and ace high monotone boards. Like, yes, these are like important, like good details to know, but they're not like the most important details to know. The most important thing to know and take away about button versus cutoff 3-bet pots is it's a lot of small betting, 20% from the button. The cutoff should be playing a very aggressive check raising strategy. Okay. The button still needs to call that check raise pretty wide. And the cutoff does overfold, and they get to overfold because they get a call with a really wide range pre-flop because they're getting a good price. So they call up pre-flop and then they fold out all their junk, and then it's on the turn, plays a lot more like a normal pot then because the ranges have equaled up now. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up for now. Next week, I think we'll do out of position, like small line versus cutoff, or small line versus button. We're going to look at some of those spots and how they play, and then we will probably take a week or two on those spots. So, all right, see you guys.